Picture this: a girl from the rough edges of Brooklyn, New York, where hope feels like a distant star. That's Rachel Hayes, a young woman carrying the weight of a hard life. Now imagine Daniel Grayson, the king of Grayson Technologies, ruling from a penthouse in Manhattan, a world of power and wealth. Two strangers, two different universes, until one moment pulls them together like a magnet. It starts with a job interview. Rachel steps into a glass tower, her heart racing, chasing a flicker of a better tomorrow. She's not looking for love, just a lifeline. But Daniel sees her and something clicks. One glance and he's hooked. What happens next? It's not just a job offer, it's a twist no one saw coming. A spark ignites, fast and wild, turning her life upside down in a heartbeat. This isn't your typical love story. It's raw, messy, and full of questions. Can a flame that burns so bright last through the shadows? Rachel's got secrets, Daniel's got a past, and the world won't let them forget it. From Brooklyn's crowded streets to Manhattan's dazzling heights, this tale will grab you and not let go. Will love conquer all, or will it crash and burn? Grab a seat, because you won't want to miss what's coming. This is about a look that changed everything, a chance that defied the odds. Stick around, because Rachel and Daniel's story is just beginning, and trust me, you'll want to know what happens next. Let's dive in. Life hasn't been kind to Rachel Hayes. At 25, she's stuck in a cramped, run-down apartment in Brooklyn, New York, where the walls are thin and the heat barely works. She spends her days waiting tables at a small coffee shop, pouring burnt coffee for grumpy regulars, earning just enough to scrape by. Her nights are spent staring at a stack of bills she can't pay. The worst of them, a $50,000 medical debt from her mother's losing battle with cancer. Rachel was there every day at the hospital, holding her mom's hand, watching her fade. When she passed, the doctors handed Rachel more than grief. They gave her a mountain of debt she never asked for. Now, it's just her, alone, with no family, no savings, and a dream that feels more like a cruel joke. A chance to start over. Every morning she walks past the same graffiti-covered buildings, her sneakers worn thin from years of use. She's tough, though. She's had to be. Growing up in Brooklyn taught her to keep her head down and fight for every scrap. But lately, that fight feels pointless. The coffee shop barely pays her rent, let alone the debt collectors who call non-stop, their voices sharp and cold through her cracked phone screen. She's applied to dozens of jobs, office gigs, retail, anything, but her resume with no college degree and a string of odd jobs gets her nowhere. Then, one day, flipping through a free newspaper left on a table, she sees it. An ad for a personal assistant position at Grayson Technologies, a big tech company in Manhattan. The pay isn't listed, but the name alone screams opportunity. She hesitates. She's no suit-and-tie type, but the debt looms, and desperation wins. She types up an application on her ancient laptop, pouring her heart into it, explaining her situation, begging for a shot. She hits send and prays. 2 days later, her phone buzzes with an email. Grayson Technologies wants her for an interview. Rachel stares at the screen, her stomach flipping. This could be it, her way out. The morning of the interview, she digs through her closet for something decent. A faded black blazer and a skirt with a small tear she hopes no one notices. She brushes her dark hair, ties it back, and looks in the mirror. She doesn't feel ready, but she has to be. The subway ride to Manhattan is a blur, her hands sweaty as she clutches a crumpled resume. She steps out into the chaos of the city, skyscrapers looming like giants. Grayson Technologies' headquarters is a sleek tower of glass and steel, the kind of place she's only seen in movies. She walks through the polished lobby, her sneakers squeaking on the marble floor, feeling every eye on her cheap clothes. The receptionist, a woman with perfect hair, tells her to take the elevator to the 40th floor. Rachel nods, her throat dry, and steps inside. The elevator doors open to a quiet hallway, all white walls and modern art. A man in a suit leads her to a conference room with a view of the Manhattan skyline that takes her breath away. She sits, fidgeting, waiting. Then the door opens, and in walks Daniel Grayson. He's tall, maybe 32, with sharp features and dark eyes that seem to see right through her. His suit probably costs more than her rent for a year. She stands, nervous, expecting some HR person, not the CEO himself. He sits across from her, scanning her resume, silent for a moment that feels like forever. "Rachel Hayes," he says finally, his voice low and steady. "Tell me about yourself." She stumbles through her story, the coffee shop, her mom, the debt, trying to sound strong but feeling small. He listens, his gaze intense, almost unsettling. She finishes, expecting questions about skills or experience. Instead, he leans back, studying her. "I saw you once," he says, almost to himself. Rachel blinks, confused. "At the hospital, with your mother. You were there every day." Her heart skips. She doesn't remember him, but those months were a haze of pain and exhaustion. Before she can respond, he sets her resume down and looks straight into her eyes. "You've got grit. I like that." She nods, unsure, waiting for the job part. But then he says something that stops her cold. "Rachel, I don't just want you as my assistant." He pauses, his voice softening. "Marry me. I've been waiting for you." Her mouth drops open. She must have heard wrong. "What?" she stammers, her mind racing. He doesn't flinch, just keeps those dark eyes locked on hers. "Marry me," he repeats, calm, certain, like it's the most normal thing in the world. Rachel's head spins. This isn't how interviews go. She came for a job, not a husband. She searches his face for a joke, a catch, but there's none. Just a man who looks at her like she's the only person in the room, maybe the only one in his world. "I don't understand," she manages, her voice shaky. He stands, stepping closer, towering over her, but not threatening, just sure. "You will," he says. "Say yes, and I'll explain everything." Rachel freezes. $50,000 of debt flashes in her mind, the endless calls, the weight crushing her every day. This man, this stranger, is offering her something insane, something impossible. She doesn't know him, doesn't trust him, but there's a pull in his words, a promise she can't ignore. Her heart pounds as she looks up at him, torn between fear and a tiny, reckless hope. "Why me?" she whispers. He smiles, faint but real. "Because when I saw you, I knew." The room feels too small, the air too thick. She doesn't say yes, not yet, but she doesn't say no either. And in that silence, her life starts to shift, teetering on the edge of something she never saw coming. Rachel Hayes sits in that sleek conference room, Daniel Grayson's words echoing in her ears. "Marry me. I've been waiting for you." Her mind is a mess, spinning between shock and disbelief. She came to Grayson Technologies for a job, a lifeline to pull her out of $50,000 of medical debt, not a marriage proposal from a man she's just met. Well, not exactly met. He claims he saw her at the hospital, watching her care for her dying mother. She doesn't remember him. But his dark eyes hold a certainty that makes her pause. She stammers, "I need to think," expecting him to back off. He doesn't. "Take the night," he says, sliding a business card across the table. "Meet me tomorrow morning, 9 sharp at my lawyer's office. I'll handle everything." Then he walks out, leaving her alone with the Manhattan skyline and a decision she can't wrap her head around. That night, Rachel paces her tiny Brooklyn apartment, the debt collector's latest voicemail playing on repeat in her mind. "Miss Hayes, payment is overdue. $50,000, a number that haunts her every step. She looks at Daniel's card, gold lettering glinting under the dim kitchen light. Grayson Technologies, CEO. This man could wipe her debt clean with a snap of his fingers, but marriage? To a stranger? She tosses and turns on her lumpy mattress, replaying his voice, his look. By dawn, exhaustion wins. She grabs her coat, muttering, "This is crazy," and heads to Manhattan, not sure if she's saying yes or just needing answers. At 9, she steps into a posh law office on Fifth Avenue, all glass and leather. Daniel's there, in a crisp suit, talking to a gray-hailed lawyer. He turns, sees her, and smiles, small but warm. "You came," he says. Before she can speak, he gestures to a chair. Sit, we're doing this now. The lawyer slides papers across the desk, a marriage license already filled out. Rachel's stomach drops. Wait, now? She asks, voice cracking. Daniel nods. I got it rushed last night. Money moves things fast. She stares at the papers, her name next to his, a $10 million gift written in as a wedding present. $10 million. Enough to erase her debt and then some. Her hands shake. Why me? She asks again. He leans closer. Because you're real. I'm tired of fake. It's not an answer, not really, but it's enough. She signs, heart pounding. And just like that, they're married. A quiet ceremony with 2 witnesses and no fanfare. Hours later, Rachel's standing in Daniel's penthouse on the Upper East Side, floor-to-ceiling windows showing a city she's never belonged to. The place is huge, marble floors, modern furniture, a view of Central Park that makes her dizzy. He hands her a credit card. Use it. Pay off what you owe, whatever you need. She nods, numb, still in her thrift store blazer. Her stuff from Brooklyn fits in one suitcase, dwarfed by this new life. That night, she sleeps in a guest room bigger than her old apartment. The bed too soft, the silence too loud. Daniel's across the hall, a stranger who's now her husband. She stares at the ceiling, wondering what she's done. The next day, he drops another bombshell. You're my assistant now, he says over breakfast, casual, as if he's asking her to pass the coffee. Start tomorrow. I want you close. Rachel blinks. I thought this was about money, not a job. He looks at her, serious. It's both, you'll see. She doesn't argue, too overwhelmed to push back. At Grayson Technologies, she steps into her new role. A desk outside his office, a laptop that costs more than her old rent. She's good at it, organizing his schedule, typing notes, learning fast. But the whispers start quick. Who's she? How'd she get here? Married the boss, that's how. Her cheeks burn every time she hears it. She keeps her head down, focusing on work, but the stares follow her. Then there's Vanessa Blake. She strides into the office one afternoon, all designer heels and sharp smiles, her brother Thomas trailing behind. Thomas is a business partner, some tech deal Daniel's working on, but Vanessa's the real storm. She's tall, blonde, and looks at Rachel like she's dirt on her shoe. So you're the wife, Vanessa says, voice dripping with venom. Funny, I've known Daniel for years and he picks some nobody off the street. Rachel stiffens, gripping her pen. I'm his assistant too, she says, trying to sound steady. Vanessa laughs, cold. Sure you are. Bet that's not all you're assisting with. Thomas pulls her away, muttering apologies, but the damage is done. Rachel's face burns as Vanessa's words echo through the office, feeding the gossip mill. Back at the penthouse, she tries to settle in, but it's impossible. The fridge is stocked with food she doesn't recognize, the closet's full of clothes she didn't buy. Daniel's gone most nights, meetings, dinners, leaving her alone in this sterile palace. She pays off the $50,000 with one swipe of his card, the debt collector's silenced at last. It should feel like freedom, but it does. She's a guest here, not a wife. One evening she overhears 2 co-workers in the break room. $10 million for a wedding gift? She's a gold digger, no question. Rachel freezes, coffee cup trembling in her hand. She wants to scream. She didn't ask for this, but who'd believe her? Vanessa strikes again a week later. She corners Rachel at the office, leaning close. You think you've won? Daniel's mine, always has been. You're just a charity case he'll toss when he's bored. Rachel's throat tightens, but she fires back. He chose me, not you. Vanessa's eyes narrow. We'll see. She storms off, leaving Rachel shaken. That night, Daniel comes home late, finds her staring out the window. What's wrong? He asks, voice softer than usual. She hesitates, then spills it. Vanessa, the whispers, the weight of it all. He listens, quiet, then says, Ignore them. You're here because I want you here. It's the first time he sounded like a husband, not a boss, and it throws her. Rachel lies awake after that, replaying his words. She's free of debt, living in luxury, working a job she's good at, but none of it feels real. She's married to a man she barely knows, a man who saw something in her she can't see herself. The whispers sting, Vanessa's threats linger, and Daniel's closeness, rare as it is, confuses her more. She's in over her head, caught between gratitude and doubt, wondering if this whirlwind will lift her up or break her apart. One thing's clear, her new life's just begun, and the storms are already rolling in. Rachel Hayes adjusts to her strange new life, balancing her role as Daniel Grayson's assistant by day and his wife by name at night. Weeks pass since the whirlwind wedding, and the penthouse on the Upper East Side still feels like a museum, not a home. She's paid off the $50,000 medical debt, silencing the collectors, but the relief is fleeting. The whispers at Grayson Technologies follow her like shadows. Gold digger, they murmur behind her back. She married him for the money. She grits her teeth, focusing on her work, scheduling Daniel's meetings, drafting emails, proving she's more than a trophy. She's good at it too, quick, sharp, catching details others miss. Daniel notices. "Nice work," he says one day, glancing at her notes, and it's the first time she feels seen, not just pitied. Work becomes her anchor. She spends long hours at her desk outside his office, learning the rhythms of Grayson Technologies, a world of tech deals and big egos. Daniel's there too, often late, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He's all business, barking orders into his phone, but sometimes he lingers near her desk, asking about her day, offering coffee from the fancy machine she's too scared to touch. "You don't have to stay," he says once, catching her yawning at 9 p.m. "I want to," she replies, and it's true. The office feels more hers than the penthouse ever will. Those moments pile up, small but steady, chipping away at the wall between them. He starts bringing her flowers, daisies, simple ones, leaving them on her desk with no note. She blushes, tucking them into a mug, wondering what it means. One Friday night, they're alone in the office, rain tapping the windows. Daniel's stressed, pacing, a deal gone sour. He pours a glass of whiskey, downs it, then pours another. "Join me?" he asks, holding out a second glass. Rachel hesitates, then takes it, the burn unfamiliar but warm. They sit on the leather couch in his office, the city lights blurred outside. He's looser now, tie off, talking about nothing, a rare laugh escaping him. She laughs too, surprised how easy it feels. Then he goes quiet, staring at her. "You're different," he says, voice low, real. Before she knows it, he's closer, his hand brushing hers. He leans in, and for a second, she thinks he'll kiss her. Instead, he pulls her into a hug, tight, desperate, like he's been holding it in forever. "I saw you at that hospital," he murmurs into her hair. "Fighting for her. I couldn't forget you." She freezes, heart racing, unsure what to say. He pulls back, embarrassed, and leaves her there, stunned, clutching the empty glass. That hug shifts something. Daniel's softer after that, checking on her, driving her home when it's late. He takes her to dinner one night, a quiet Italian place, no flashy show, just pasta and wine. "Tell me about you," he says, and she does. Bits of Brooklyn, her mom, the little things. He listens, really listens, and she feels a pull, dangerous and new. But doubt creeps in. Is this real or just gratitude for the $10 million? She pushes it down, focusing on work, on him, letting herself hope. Then the past catches up. One evening she's at Jessica Lane's apartment in Brooklyn, her best friend since high school. They're on the couch splitting a pizza when Jessica asks, "You okay with all this, the marriage, the job?" Rachel sighs, picking at a slice. "I don't know, he's good to me, but it's fast." Jessica nods, then says, "You've been through worse, though. Remember that professor?" Rachel's stomach twists. She hasn't thought about him in years. The college professor who cornered her in his office, hands where they shouldn't be. She was 19, naive, dropped out after that, too ashamed to fight back. "Yeah," she whispers. "I try to forget." Jessica squeezes her hand. "You're tougher now." Rachel nods, but the memory stings, a scar she's buried deep. Daniel overhears it by accident. He'd come to pick her up, waiting outside Jessica's door, catching the tail end through the thin walls. His jaw tightens. The next day, he calls her into his office, shuts the door. "That professor," he says, voice hard. "What's his name?" She's startled. "How do—" He cuts her off. "I heard, tell me—" She mumbles it, "Professor Harris," expecting him to drop it. He doesn't. 2 weeks later, he sits her down again. "It's done," he says, sliding a news clipping across the desk. "Harris arrested, harassment charges from multiple women uncovered by a top legal team Daniel hired. He won't hurt anyone again," he adds, quiet but firm. Rachel stares, tears welling up. "Why?" she asks. "Because no one touches you and gets away with it," he says. And it's the first time she sees fire in him, not just for business but for her. The news spreads at work, whispers turning to awe. "She's not just the boss's wife," someone says. Rachel feels stronger, lighter, like a weight's lifted. Daniel's different too, protective, lingering closer. He takes her hand one day walking to the car and she doesn't pull away, but Vanessa Blake won't let it rest. She storms into the office soon after, all fury and heels, cornering Rachel by the copier. "You think this changes anything?" she hisses. "Daniel's mine." "You're a nobody, he'll ditch." Rachel stands tall. "He married me. Deal with it." Vanessa smirks. "Not for long." She spreads a rumor that week, vicious, loud, claiming Rachel's sleeping with a coworker, flaunting it behind Daniel's back. It's nonsense, but it flies through the office, heads turning, eyes judging. Rachel's furious, humiliated. She marches into Daniel's office, slamming the door. "Vanessa's saying I'm cheating. It's a lie." He looks up, calm but steely. "I know." He stands, grabs his phone, dials Thomas Blake. "Your sister's out of line. Fix it or our deal's off." He hangs up, turns to her. "Anyone who hurts my wife will regret it," he says, voice low, dangerous. She stares, caught off guard by the word wife, not just a title now, but something real. He steps closer, brushing her cheek. "You're not alone anymore." Her breath catches, a mix of relief and something deeper, something she's scared to name. That night, back at the penthouse, she's restless. Daniel's on the balcony, city lights painting him in gold. She joins him, silent, the air thick between them. "Thank you," she says finally. "For Harris, for Vanessa, for everything." He turns, eyes soft. "You don't owe me that." They stand there, close, the gap shrinking. She feels it now, a pull she can't deny, born from late nights, quiet dinners, his steady hand in her chaos. But Vanessa's words echo, the whispers linger, and her past whispers too. Is this love, or just a debt repaid? She doesn't know, but as he looks at her, she wants to find out, even if it means risking everything she's starting to feel. Rachel Hayes stands at a crossroads. Months have passed since she signed those marriage papers, since Daniel Grayson pulled her from a life drowning in $50,000 of debt into his world of penthouses and power. She's his assistant, his wife, and lately something more. A quiet bond growing through late nights and stolen moments. The whispers at Grayson Technologies still sting. Vanessa Blake's venom still burns. But Daniel's steady presence keeps her grounded. She's starting to feel it. A warmth she can't name. A trust she's afraid to lean into. But just when she thinks she's finding her footing, everything explodes. It's a Friday night, a big company gala at a swanky Manhattan hotel. Rachel's there, dressed in a simple black gown Daniel picked out, feeling out of place among the suits and sequins. She sticks close to him, his hand brushing hers as they mingle. He's charming, working the room, but his eyes keep finding her, a silent anchor. She's almost enjoying it, the buzz of the crowd, the rare smile on his face. Then Vanessa Blake walks in, a vision in red, her brother Thomas trailing behind. Rachel's stomach tightens. Vanessa's been quiet since Daniel shut down her rumors, but the look in her eyes tonight says she's not done. She weaves through the crowd, straight for them, her smile sharp as a blade. "Daniel," Vanessa purrs, ignoring Rachel. "You look good. Shame you're wasting it on her." Daniel's jaw clenches, but before he can speak, Vanessa turns to Rachel, voice loud enough for the room to hear. How's it feel, playing wife to a man you barely know? Or do you just like the money? Rachel's face heats, heads turning, murmurs rippling. She opens her mouth to snap back, but Vanessa cuts in, stepping closer. You don't belong here, and everyone knows it. Then, in a flash, she grabs a glass of red wine from a passing tray and dumps it over Rachel's head. The room gasps, wine dripping down her face, soaking her dress. Rachel stands frozen, humiliated, the sting worse than the cold liquid. Daniel moves fast. He grabs Vanessa's arm, voice low and furious. Get out, now, she smirks, pulling free. You'll thank me when you see her for what she is. Security steps in, escorting her out as she laughs, Thomas following, red-faced, muttering apologies. Rachel wants to disappear, but Daniel's there, pulling off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders. I've got you, he says, guiding her through the staring crowd to a side room. She's shaking, wine sticky on her skin, tears burning her eyes. He shuts the door, grabs a towel from a waiter, wipes her face gently. I'm sorry, he says, voice tight. She's gone too far. Rachel pulls away, voice breaking. Why does she hate me so much? Why am I even here? He goes still, then sits, motioning her to join him. Sit. You deserve the truth. She does, wary, clutching his jacket. He takes a breath, eyes locked on hers. I saw you months before that interview, at the hospital. You were there every day, fighting for your mom. I'd come to visit a friend, saw you in the hall, arguing with a doctor about bills, refusing to give up. You were exhausted, but you didn't break. I couldn't stop thinking about you. Rachel blinks, pieces clicking. That's why you... He nods. When your application came across my desk, I knew it was you. I didn't plan the marriage part, not at first. But when you walked in, scared but strong, I couldn't let you go again. I had to keep you close. Her head spins. So this was what, a rescue? She asks, voice sharp. He shakes his head. No, it was selfish. I wanted you, not just to save you. The money, the job, it was a way in, but it's more now. You're more. She stares, heart pounding, his words sinking in. He's not the cold CEO she met, not anymore. He's a man who saw her at her lowest and chose her, reckless as it was. She wants to believe him, but Vanessa's voice echoes. The crowd's eyes linger in her mind. I need air, she says, standing, needing space from the weight of it all. Back at the penthouse, she cleans up, changes, but the night won't leave her. Daniel's on the phone, voice hard, talking to Thomas Blake. Your sister's done. Our deal's off. Tell her she's lucky I didn't press charges. He hangs up, finds her in the living room, staring out at the city. She won't bother you again, he says, firm. I meant what I said. I'll protect you. Rachel turns, voice quiet. I don't want protection. I want to be your equal, not some girl you saved. He steps closer, surprised. You are. You've been running my office better than anyone. You're not weak, Rachel. I'm the one who's scared you'll walk away. That hits her. He's scared? The man who gave her $10 million, who built an empire, is scared of losing her? She sees it now, the cracks in his armor, the way he looks at her like she's his anchor too, but she's drowning in doubt. I can't do this halfway, she says, voice steady despite the ache. I'm not a wife on paper. If this is real, it has to be real. He nods, slow. It is. Tell me what you need. She takes a breath, decision forming. Space. To think. She grabs her bag, heads for the door. Where are you going? He asks, worried. Jessica's, she says. I'll be back. I just need to figure this out. He lets her go, eyes heavy, trusting her to return. The subway ride to Brooklyn is quiet, her mind loud. She replays it all, the hospital, the interview, the wine-soaked gala. Jessica's waiting when she arrives, pulling her into a hug. What happened? She asks, seeing Rachel's face. Everything, Rachel says, collapsing on the couch. She tells her, Daniel's confession, Vanessa's attack, the mess of it. Jessica whistles. He's nuts about you, but what do you want? Rachel stares at the ceiling. No answer yet. She's free of debt, stronger than she's ever been, thanks to him. But this marriage started as his choice, not hers. Now it's hers to make. She spends the weekend at Jessica's, sleeping on a lumpy sofa, breathing Brooklyn air again. It's familiar, safe, but it's not home anymore. She thinks of Daniel, his hug that night in the office, his jacket over her shoulders, his voice promising her the world. He saw her when no one else did, built this life for her, flawed as it is. Monday looms, her desk waiting, him waiting. She's not the girl from the hospital anymore, not just a debt or a damn. She's Rachel Hayes, and whatever comes next, she'll face it on her terms. The question hangs, will she step back into his world or walk away from the man who changed hers? Rachel Hayes spends 3 days at Jessica Lane's cramped Brooklyn apartment. The familiar hum of the city outside, a stark contrast to the silence of Daniel Grayson's penthouse. She's left him there, needing space after the gala, after his confession about seeing her at the hospital all those months ago. Her head's a mess, torn between the man who pulled her from $50,000 of debt and the life she's built on her own terms. Jessica's couch is lumpy, the coffee weak, but it's home in a way the Upper East Side never was. "You're nuts to leave a guy like that," Jessica says over breakfast, half joking. Rachel stirs her mug, quiet. "It's not about him, it's about me." Jessica nods, letting it drop, but the question lingers in Rachel's mind. What does she want? Monday morning looms, her desk at Grayson Technologies waiting, Daniel waiting. She's replayed it all, the interview, the rushed wedding, the $10 million gift that changed her life. Vanessa Blake's gone, her brother Thomas scrambling to save their deal, but the echoes of that night, wine dripping down her dress, still sting. Daniel's words cut deeper, though. "I couldn't let you go." He saw her at her lowest, chose her when she had nothing, built this strange, fragile thing between them. She thinks of the daisies on her desk, his hand brushing hers, the way he stood up for her, fierce and sure. It's not just gratitude anymore. It's something real, something she's scared to lose, but she can't be his rescue story. She has to choose this, not fall into it. By Sunday night, she knows she can't hide forever. She pulls on her coat, grabs her bag, and heads back to Manhattan. The subway's crowded, her heart heavier with every stop. She doesn't call ahead, doesn't know what she'll say. When she steps off the elevator into the penthouse, it's quiet, lights low. Daniel's at the kitchen counter, a glass of water in hand, looking tired, surprised to see her. "You're back," he says, voice soft, uncertain. She nods, setting her bag down. "I needed to think." He steps closer, cautious, and she takes a breath, steadying herself. "I needed to know this is mine, too, not just yours." He listens, waiting, giving her the floor. She moves to the window, city lights sprawling below. "You saw me at the hospital, gave me everything. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm stronger now because of you, because of me. If we do this, it's not you saving me, it's us, together." He joins her, close but not touching. "I never wanted a damsel. I wanted you. All of you, the fight, the fire." "I'm sorry I rushed it." His voice cracks, raw. "I was scared you'd slip away again." She turns, meeting his eyes, seeing the man behind the CEO, vulnerable, real. "I'm here now," she says, "but it's my choice this time." He pulls something from his pocket, a small silver ring, plain, no diamonds. "I got this," he says, holding it out. "Not $10 million, just me. If you want it." Her breath catches. It's not a redo of their wedding, not a grand gesture. Just him, asking. She takes it, slides it on, the weight light but solid. "I do," she whispers, a smile breaking through. He grins, rare and bright, pulling her into his arms. They stay there, wrapped up, the city buzzing below, a moment that feels like theirs alone. She doesn't say she loves him, not yet, but it's close, hovering in the air between them. The next morning, they walk into Grayson Technologies together, her hand in his, no hiding. The whispers shift, less venom, more curiosity. She sits at her desk, Daisy still there, and gets to work, Daniel in his office, stealing glances through the glass. It's not perfect, not finished. Vanessa's out of the picture, but the world they're in won't stay quiet. She's still Rachel Hayes, still figuring it out, but now she's not alone. They've got time, space, to build something real, step by step. That night, he takes her back to Brooklyn, to the coffee shop where she used to work. They sit in a corner booth, sharing a slice of pie, laughing over nothing. It's simple, grounded, a piece of her he's learning to fit into. And here's where we leave them, folks. Rachel and Daniel, side by side in that little booth under flickering lights. Was it fate that brought them together, that day in the hospital, that interview that turned into a vow, or just a wild spark that somehow caught fire? Their story doesn't end here, not really. She's chosen him, he's chosen her, but the road ahead's unwritten. Will they make it through the storms, build a love that lasts, or will the weight of their start pull them apart? That's the beauty of it, the not knowing. They're real, flawed, fighting for something bigger than a fairy tale. So what do you think happens next? Picture them years down the line, stronger, or maybe facing new battles. Love at first sight kicked this off, a glance that changed everything, but it's the choices they make now that'll define it. I've taken you from Brooklyn's shadows to Manhattan's heights, through debt and doubt, wine-soaked nights, and quiet promises. Rachel's not the girl she was. Daniel's not the man he thought he'd be. And together, there's something new. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you see them going. Did she make the right call, coming back? Is he worth the risk? This tale's yours now, too, so let's hear it. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep believing in the sparks that light up the dark.